Hello everyone, Stepan here. I'll go over one of Wesley's games from day 3 of the YNM Rapid tournament played in Leuven as the first portion of the Grand Chess Tour. And his performance continues to be astonishing on day 3 as well. On the first 2 days he won 2 games and drew 1, so scored 5 points out of 6 games, and yesterday on day 3 he had 2 draws and a win. So he managed to play all nine games without a single loss. He's the only player who managed that, and after the rapid portion of the event he's in clear first with 7 out of 9, which is amazing. The 2 players trailing behind him in second place are Aronian and Maxime Bachir-Legrave, who have 5.5, and having a gap of 1.5 points after only 9 rounds is remarkable in such a strong field. Now they still have to play the blitz portion of the event, which is 18 games, so double the number of the rapid games. And of course, having an advantage of 1.5 points means nothing and doesn't ensure victory of the event, but he definitely stands a great advantage to the rest of the field. And this game I'm about to show you is amazing because of a few things. Firstly, he played Hikaru Nakamura, who is a strong tactical player, and Wesley So had the black pieces, so he had to defend. But rapid chess is not the same as classical chess, and they were playing 25 minutes per game with a 10-second delay per move. So if you don't make a move during the first 10 seconds, you lose no clock time. But still, you don't have as much time to think, and you'd think that Hikaru Nakamura will be stronger under time pressure. Of course, being the fastest bullet and blitz player in the world, but Wesley So has definitely managed to outclass the entire field and become probably the strongest rapid player today, despite not winning the World Rapid Championship. So in this game, Hikaru Nakamura opened with pawn to d4. We have knight to f6, bishop to f4, entering perhaps a version of the London system or an Indian game, and after d5, e3. This is indeed now a hybrid of a London Indian. And now c5, and in this position after c5, by far the most common move with over 2000 games is knight to f3, and this is by far the most commonly played move, and perhaps you could call this move the mainline theory. After this, knight to c6, c3, closing down the London system triangle, queen to b6, queen to b3, c4, queen c2, this is the main line. And in this position, black is supposed to have equalized already and perhaps even have a slight advantage, but white has a lot of things to play for. However, after pawn to c5, Hikaru Nakamura didn't play knight to f3, he played d takes c5. And this is a fairly uncommon move, and now we are already, well, we aren't out of live book, we aren't out of played games, but the number has dropped significantly, and there have only been 68 games from this position, as opposed to more than 2000 with the move knight to f3. Now to this, Wesley So doesn't reply with the most common move. He plays e6, which is, now we are almost completely out of book, and the most common move is knight to c6, not attacking the pawn immediately. e6 is almost a novelty. There have only been about 8 games from this position. Here b4 is played. Of course, black has temporarily sacrificed the pawn, so white is going to try to hang on to it. a5, c3, of course a3 would fail because ab would lose the rook, so he has to play c3. Bishop to d7 is a common move, and here Hikaru Nakamura blunders basically. There have only been 2 games from this position. White is best of playing knight to d2. He could also play knight to a3. Both of those moves are understandable and okay. Knight to d2 is of course much better, and it has been played once. Hikaru Nakamura played the move that has never been played and which is bad. He played queen to b3. Now queen to b3 doesn't seem like a bad move, but this is actually on their level, on Super Grandmaster level, an advantage of -1.5 is insurmountable for Hikaru Nakamura, and Wesley So should never give that advantage up. So to this, he of course plays the best move. Now, why is white that much worse? Firstly, he is still a pawn up, so he isn't going to lose material, but his kingside development and king safety is crucial to the position. And of course, you can see that neither of the white pieces on the king side have been developed yet. The king is 4 moves away from castling, 3 moves, I'm sorry. And of course, the king could never ever castle queenside, so the king is far off from being safe. On the other hand, black still has to play bishop to e7 and castles and be safe. Now, the best move here is a takes b4, opening up lines. If your opponent's king is unsafe, then opening up lines could only benefit you. C takes b4, b6, attacking the pawn structure. Of course, the pawn can't advance. And now, another mistake by Hikaru Nakamura. The best move would have been knight to d2, just trying to develop and solidify the position. And after b takes c5, b takes c5, bishop takes c5, black is of course much better, but white has at least developed one piece. However, after b6, Hikaru played bishop to d6, and this is now just busted, and this move is bad tactically. And Wesley So plays knight to e4, and now of course the threat is to capture the bishop with knight takes d6, and to play queen to f6, attacking the rook on a1 and attacking the pawn on f2. So to this, you can't really take on f8. If Wesley takes on f8, Hikaru takes on f8, bishop takes f8, queen to f6, not even taking the bishop immediately, and white is forced to play f3. Now, after f3, you don't have to take the rook. You can take the bishop first. So rook takes f8, and once again, there is no way to defend the rook. If queen b2, then simply queen takes b2. If the queen moves, then the rook is lost. So black would have enough time to capture. So f takes c4 would be the best option, giving up the exchange. So after queen takes a1, you can see that materially black is completely winning. That's why after knight to e4, Hikaru Nakamura couldn't have gone for bishop takes f8. Instead, he played queen to b2, defending this long diagonal, defending the rook with the queen. And now knight takes d6, c takes d6, not capturing the pawn immediately, but queen to f6, offering a queen trade. And Hikaru Nakamura accepts the queen trade. Now, queen takes f6, g takes f6, there's no way to defend the d6 pawn, so b5, bishop takes d6. And now if you count the material, both sides have 6 pawns. You could argue that despite having double pawns and an isolated pawn, black's pawn structure is favorable because he has a lot more attacking chances. And secondly, black has the bishop pair and the initiative. In this position, there really isn't any attacking idea for white. There's no way for white to attack the black king in the next five moves, perhaps. And black has clear targets. Firstly, that's the pawn on a2, that's the pawn on g2, that's the king, and the pawn on b5. So this position, despite being equal material and the only advantage for black being the bishop pair, is much better for black. And first of all, black is now threatening to play bishop to e5 and grab the rook, so something has to be done. Hikaru Nakamura plays a4 to be able to play rook to a2, and this does defend b5 as well. Now we have king to e7, bishop to d3, attacking the h7 pawn, rook to c8. The pawn of course can't be taken, because if bishop h7 then f5 and the bishop is lost. So after rook to c8, Hikaru plays knight to e2, finally developing e5. And now we are going to see the strength of Wesley's pawn center. He has 4 pawns in the center which are able to cramp the entire white position and amplify the significance of black's pieces. f3, f5. Here Hikaru plays rook to a2. Which is, I mean, it's a mistake, but how do you qualify it? Why it's a mistake? I mean, he should have played knight to d2, of course, developing a piece, and after bishop to b4, accept the pin. Perhaps he wanted to castle first and then do that. But after f5, rook to a2, now Wesley is able to play bishop to e6, now once again threatening to attack the rook. We have rook to c2, bishop to b4 check, king to f1, and now rook takes a4, grabbing a pawn, which is technically a mistake, but it's why not go up material if you can. Now rook takes c8, bishop takes c8, and this is where a losing position, now materially losing as well, goes completely downhill for Hikaru Nakamura even more. Now if Hikaru Nakamura manages to untangle somehow from the position, he might be able to survive. However, if he makes another mistake, then the position is completely losing. He plays knight e to c3, And now the knight is of course attacked once. It's still defending by the knight on a1. We have bishop takes c3, knight takes c3, and exchange happens. Rook to a3 attacking the knight and the bishop. We have and yeah, this is the crucial point of the game. Now here Wesley So has allowed Hikaru Nakamura to grab 2 pawns with check. But I'm not sure whether Hikaru was in time trouble at the point, but it's clear that taking the pawns loses a piece. Now, of course, in this position, Hikaru can take on d5 with check. After the king moves, he can take on b6. That much is clear. Now, secondly, after he takes with check here and the king goes here, he can't take the bishop on d3 either, because after the knight takes here, the knight is threatening to grab the bishop on c8. So if knight takes d5 check, let's say king to d8 is played, then after knight takes on b6, if rook takes here, then that could work. But Wesley So found an even stronger way to capture a piece. Now, we have knight takes d5 check, that was played. King to d6, not going to save the bishop. In fact, threatening to grab the bishop here with check, offering that to Hikaru Nakamura. Now, technically, this may seem losing for black, but after what happened next, you will see that that Hikaru Nakamura has just blundered the piece. Knight takes b6, threatening to take on c8 with check. But after bishop to e6, the knight has no squares. Okay, so how do you save the knight? The rook is covering the a4 square and the a8 square. The bishop is covering the c8 square. The bishop is covering the c4 square. Now, if you move the knight immediately, then rook takes bishop, and there's pretty much nothing you can do. He played bishop to b1, trying to at least save the bishop first. King to c5, attacking the knight, and the knight is lost, and Hikaru decides to play knight to c8 to at least get the bishop away from the center. So bishop takes c8. And now Hikaru has, of course, blundered a piece. Since he was a pawn down already, the fact that he won 2 pawns for the piece means nothing, because he now has 1 pawn for the knight, which is, of course, materially losing. He tries to fight on, king to f2. Bishop e6, getting the bishop back to the center, g4, f takes g4, bishop takes h7, knight to d7, centralizing the knight, rook to b1, another mistake. Perhaps Nakamura was trying to force the b pawn to queening, but that's very much impossible because the knight is covering the queening square. Rook to a2 check, threatening to grab the h2 pawn. King to g3, g takes f3. If king takes f3, then rook takes h2. So we have h4, and that's another tactical problem. After h4, okay, let's see what would have happened. If king to g3, then g takes f3, king takes f3, then rook takes h2. Okay, we have to move the bishop to e4. But this is now actually supporting the pawn to queening, so this would have been a much more favorable variation for Hikaru. However, after king to g3, g takes f3, h4, the bishop is trapped, because now Wesley gets to play f5, and how do you get the bishop out? There's basically nothing you can do to save the bishop, because if the bishop goes to g6, then simply e5, and the bishop has no squares. You're simply going to attack it with the knight and take it, or leave it trapped on the h4 square, h5 square for the rest of the game. After this, Hikaru took on f3, and after knight to f6, taking the bishop, he just resigned. I mean, the bishop could go to g6, but that's pretty much it. After that, you are losing the piece, or you are at least playing a piece down. So yeah, I don't know what to think about this game. I was astonished by the ease with which Wesley So managed to defeat Hikaru Nakamura, and secondly, the fact that they were basically out of theory on move 5, which is, even for a rapid game, extremely rare. I mean, it's not as if it's a bullet game, so that they play just aggressively. This was strong chess. I mean, they both tried to play well, but for some reason, both of them decided to avoid the main theory in the Indian game, and they got out of theory, but to Wesley's advantage, unfortunately for Hikaru. So once again, 7 out of 9 for Wesley in the first portion of the Your Next Move Rapid and Blitz. An astonishing performance. Let's hope he does this well in the Blitz portion, where I'm sure Hikaru is going to have a say as well, and some other people. And once again, I hope Fabiano Caruana manages to get some points in on the score sheet, and that he shows some muscle to Magnus Carlsen, because November is coming up pretty fast. Okay, everybody, thanks very much for watching. I hope you got something from this game, and stay tuned for more chess. Thanks very much. Bye.